Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being here for the Vision 2030 engagement session. I'm here with my colleagues, Les, Loretta, Sue, and Reno, to engage with you on our Vision 2030. Of course, the registrar is also in the audience, in the panel, and we look forward to engaging with you. UCT's Strategic Framework 2020 comes to an end this December. That strategic framework, Nico's second slide, that strategic framework has served us very well, but it was developed during a time of unrest, and all that is reflected in the document. It focuses on addressing challenges, many of which are also important for the future. They are current challenges that the university was grappling with a lot then, and they are also important for the future. However, developing an institutional strategy with the future in mind brings into focus new challenges that need addressing as we look towards 2030. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us. We are battling with COVID-19, as well as changing needs for those we serve. Taking office at a time when the Strategic Framework 2020 was coming to an end, presented us with a privilege, an opportunity to bring a new vision to UCT. At the core of that vision are the three pillars: excellence, transformation, and sustainability. The idea and the commitment to excellence that we as the UCT leadership are committed to. That we will not compromise excellence despite what our future looks like, but also an understanding that excellence, pursuing excellence in and of itself, without transformation, we will not be sustainable. So we're saying we've got to understand excellence in all its complexity, and the fact that actually excellence is enabled. It doesn't happen on its own. And so when we see it showing up in a particular way, it is because it was enabled in that way. And looking into the future, we've got to bring the pillar of excellence alongside the pillar of transformation to ensure that this excellence we are pursuing is sustainable. But also we've got to understand transformation, that it goes beyond access and employment equity. It's about also focusing on equity of participation and equity of success. And that's where the enabling of excellence comes in. If we keep these two pillars strong, excellence and transformation working together and not in opposition, we will sustain our university. As we look towards the future, we have to think not just of the problems of the past that still affect us now, but we also have to look beyond our current context because the world is changing. And so as we began thinking about our vision for 2030, we asked ourselves the question, the world is changing, are we? It is for this reason that we set up the Futures Think Tank to help us think through how to respond to these changes. However, with time, the discussions and engagements at the Futures Think Tank, as they continued, the focus of the think tank changed from how we should respond to the coming changes to how do we lead the change. We want to lead the change. We don't just want to adapt to the change. But of course, we also understand that change can be disruptive, but it can also enhance what we do, make it better, and make it stand out and make it more impactful. To lead change, we have to initiate the change ourselves in order to enhance what we do. We know what happened to many leading companies that resisted change when the digital revolution started. There are numerous examples such as Nokia, Kodak, the AA, that resisted the revolution, the digital revolution, and right now they are not as visible as they used to be. As the world changes, leading companies that do not proactively initiate change themselves run the risk of losing their edge and becoming irrelevant. A few weeks ago, I read that Kodak has repositioned itself after missing a moment of digital transformation and filing for bankruptcy in 2012. They are now working on manufacturing ingredients for COVID-19 drugs. Wow. They missed the digital transformation moment, and now they are working hard to make sure that they do not miss the COVID-19 moment. Vision 2030 is an opportunity to make sure that UCT does not miss this moment. Universities operate in environments that are increasingly unstable, unpredictable, and competitive. The COVID-19 pandemic is the latest in a series of disruptive forces that universities have experienced in the past several decades. Digital transformation demands that we prepare our students for lifelong learning, financial crisis, and demands for new forms of knowledge, skills, and competencies. And these are some of the major drivers that have made change and continuous reinvention necessary in order for universities to remain relevant, competitive, and sustainable. Digital transformation represents profound advancements in science and technology and has important implications for society, for governments, for businesses, for industry, and higher education institutions. And these advancements, their promises as well as their perils, provide an overarching backdrop for us to reimagine the ongoing transformation of society, the future of work and professions, and the evolving role of universities as knowledge institutions. We therefore want to be proactive, and to do that, we have to initiate the change ourselves and decide for ourselves who we want to be as a university and how we're going to distinguish ourselves. With this thinking, we emerged with our proposed vision, #Unleashed. Our proposed vision is to be an institution, next slide, Nico, an institution that unleashes human potential for a fair and just future. Our dream is to make a distinct contribution in 4 areas. The first is to provide a holistic, innovative, and future-oriented education. The second, to conduct research that addresses Africa's problems and contributes to global knowledge. And you'll note that in the document, we deliberately use K to spell the word Africa, not only because this version of spelling is the original spelling, but also we use K as a symbolic rejection of colonial usurpation of African agency. In a sense, we are reclaiming African agency. Third, to give thought leadership. And fourth, to inculcate an organizational ethos that supports new and diverse ways of thinking, doing, and being. In crafting these goals, we worked with the notion of an integrated set of choices and of creating sustainable advantage. We asked ourselves the question, what is unique about UCT? Or what is unique about what UCT can offer that will sustain the value of the university into the future? The fundamental approach to the development of Vision 2030 is based on the cascading down of strategic choices from the institutional level to the implementation units. In practical terms, this implied thinking strategically about UCT in relation to our core functions of teaching and learning and research, in relation to the 6 faculties and the past departments, and in relation to the different departments that provide professional and support services for the university. In doing this, transformation and social responsiveness were regarded as cross-cutting elements of our ethos that must be present in all strategic choices at all levels for them to be effective. And it is for this reason that I want to hand over to DVC Ferris to elaborate on our vision in terms of transformation, and thereafter we'll hand over to Lis and then to Sue to talk about the academic project. And then I will come back to make closing remarks, and then we can have a conversation where in the COO will come in to indicate what this vision means for past departments. Loretta, over to you.
as the Vice Chancellor indicated, during this process, we understood the whole time that transformation, social responsiveness, all of these are cross-cutting themes and will be part of the vision. But we wanted to think very specifically, how do we bring this into the vision? So we brought some members of staff and students into a think space to think about what does transformation look like as we move forward into Vision 2030 and beyond 2020. And this is the big sort of thinking that came out of the workshop that we had, and that is that we want to redress inequality, we want to build social justice, we want to do this through targeted strategies in order to return to dignity and to amplify voice and agency. So, in other words, we have 4 transformative principles that inform the vision, and you'll see some of the language actually flowing through when Liz and Sue give their presentations. So we wanted to focus on the need to redress inequality. We know and we understand that inequality remains part of our society. We're in a society that's deeply unequal. In fact, our social responsiveness report last year spoke to that in its forward. And that inequality often means and is equated to indignity. And so here at the university, we also want to not only focus on redressing inequality, but we want to ensure a return to dignity. At the same time, it's important that people have agency, that people feel that they are the actors of transformation, that they can drive transformation. And so as we move forward, we want to amplify people's voices. People should feel that they have the ability to speak up and speak out, but also to have the agency to drive transformation. And all of this will enable us to enhance social justice. But we talk about strategies that will do this. And one of the strategies that we're currently working on, and this is work in progress, is to rethink our approach to addressing racism. And you'll know that this has been something that has been highlighted over the last few weeks, not just here in South Africa, but globally. It's been at the forefront of our thinking. And we're currently looking at 4 important pillars for a different strategy to racism. Looking at the notion of white accountability or white privilege, you may have encountered this concept before. 2 weeks ago, we had a very interesting webinar around what white privilege means in a time of COVID. We also want to focus on what it means to be Black at UCT. What does it mean to actually traverse the UCT corridors whilst being Black member of staff, Black student, and of course we're using Black in its broad context, encompassing all of the designated groups in South Africa. Then we want to continue something that we started last year, which is our anti-oppression dialogues, understanding racism from a historical context, from decoloniality context, and also its intersectionality with gender, with sexual orientation, etc. Then, of course, and very important element is how does racism impact on us? And so we need to begin to respond to the emotional trauma that is part of racism, especially when you are the object of racism. So we want to roll this out through not only through sort of broader conversations such as webinars, but also more intimate workshops and one-on-one dialogues. And we will use this using both through our internal but also external partnerships. With that, I'm going to give over to Liz, who's going to unpack the teaching part of the strategy.
As Hetty has mentioned, the overall goal in the area of teaching and learning is holistic, innovative, future-oriented education. And this, of course, includes the undergraduate programs as much as the postgraduate education that it is offered by the university. The idea with this goal is that UCT is not just producing graduates that are going to be working in a particular niche in the labor market, but that it is producing persons who are going to have a role in being critical thinkers, in transforming the world in which they are, and that will going to have quite a strong sense of stewardship, and the sense that the world in which they live, they have inherited, and they will have to inherit it to some other, to the next generations, and therefore they have a responsibility for it. Now, we believe that for this type of education to take place, there are a number of conditions that need to be met and a number of things that need to be put in place. First of all, we need to have professionally trained academic staff that understand that teaching and learning, both at undergraduate and postgraduate level, is something that needs to be learned and needs to be practiced. And we are determined to continue doing things in this area in order to offer the best type of teaching and learning for our students. We also need to understand that new and transformative pedagogies are essential to change the relationship between staff and students in the classroom, to change the relationship between students, to change the relationship between students and knowledge, and staff and students and knowledge. This also leads us to the next point, which is the importance of renewing the curriculum and making sure that we change the content of what we teach in such a way that we respond to different ways of thinking, to the need to respond to the needs of the country and to our own obligations, to new trends in thinking about knowledge, and that we commit ourselves to decolonization of the curriculum in the manner in which we have decided at the university. If something we have learned through the COVID experience is that the university is behind in terms of resources and infrastructure dedicated to teaching and learning. And so we will have to address this aspect and make sure that instead of having classrooms that represent a sort of industrial mode of education, we have classrooms that reflect the digital age and the digital generation we are working with. Similarly, and because preparing students to do things with their skills and with their knowledge is important, we need to develop partnerships with a variety of stakeholders in order to make sure that our students not only have the experience of the university, but also they experience how to work with their knowledge in other settings. And finally, and just as important than everything else, is the need to look at our academic and student support services in such a way that from end to end, students have an experience which is welcoming, which is pleasant, and which is above all efficient and serves the purposes of the university. So when we start thinking as to how we translate this goal into what would be the massive transformative purpose of teaching and learning at the university, we arrive to the following conclusion. Nico, would you please? So the massive transformative purpose that we are putting on the table is the idea that through teaching and learning, we are going to unleash a student's potential to be resilient agents of change for themselves and in society. So we believe that this is the change that UCT can provide, and we are very proud to be part of this enterprise. So that said, I pass on the baton to Professor Harrison.
Thank you, Liz, and good morning, everybody. So I'll continue then and talk a bit about research, and we've focused our goal 2 of research on research solving Africa's problems that contribute to global knowledge. So here we're looking at the complex problems of today and of the future, and these include problems which are socially relevant, and so through this address our 4 transformative principles. Also problems which are cross-cutting, which involve need many different approaches to solve them. And these will be, working on these will be built on a strong disciplinary basis of fundamental and world-leading research, to which we can bring interdisciplinary action and expertise, which allow us then to further the applicability of our research, but also to further expand into new knowledge types through that. And while our focus is very strongly on Africa, it is with the aim of global benefit. If we look at the research ecosystem, we need to provide that. We need an ecosystem which is strong on partnerships. These will be partnerships within UCT, but also partnerships out there with the industry, the governments, with NGOs, and with society and academic colleagues, nationally and on our continent and globally. We'll need to be able to attract and keep and have within our researcher cohort diverse and excellent researchers with a wide grouping of skills and well-trained, and who view UCT as the destination where they would most like to be. These researchers will work in teams as well as individually, because the teams allow us to cross disciplines. And so, in addition to the innovative new knowledge which is at the forefront, something which we know we can already do at UCT, and in terms of how we are ranked in several of our disciplines, and we must keep doing, we'll also be able to position through these teams this new knowledge with respect to that sphere of influence, and to be able to make a maximum contribution to our society and to our globe. To achieve these things, we're going to need effective research management which is agile and innovative and efficient. And we've achieved many things with respect to research management at UCT, but to do things in a new way, we're going to need to get this even better and to take new approaches to our research management. And additionally, to carry out the kind of research at which I've been talking about, we'll need to think again about our research facilities. And so the aim is to have integrated research facilities to be able to achieve maximum benefit from the facilities that we have, to be able to use research facilities optimally within the university, but also within our collaborators beyond the university, and to be able to integrate thinking through the ways in which we use this infrastructure. This will include e-research to enable cutting-edge facilities and their integrated use. And next slide, please. In doing all of this, we hope to meet our massive transformative purpose with respect to research, which is unleashing knowledge in and from Africa to redefine and co-create a sustainable global future. And with that, I'm going to pass back to Katie.
Thanks very much, Sue. Our third goal is to be a thought leader. And with this, we want to create a communication platform to make our teaching and learning and research enterprise visible and accessible to society. Our view is that there is no point in being excellent in our academic programs and in our academic work and scholarly work, and then it only stays as a university. We want it to be accessible to society. But we also want to strengthen policies and frameworks to sustain our social engagement work. And that's what we'll do for thought leadership. And thought leadership means that we're going to put ourselves out there and be heard, be read. Not everyone will agree with us, but that's the job that we do as a leading institution. Next slide, Nico. Goal number 4 is to inculcate an organizational ethos that supports new ways of thinking, doing, and being. The idea here is to put in place policies, systems, and change management that supports environmental, social, and financial sustainability. Some of that work has started, but we want to foreground it even more. We want to ensure a cultural change focused on redressing inequality, giving voice and agency to all members of the university community and its stakeholders. There is no doubt that our greatest challenge, next slide, Nico, our greatest challenge with Vision 2030 is going to be what happens when the UCT community gets unleashed. We are a community of creative and hardworking people. And so our challenge as the leadership would be how we manage the enthusiasm and energy of a university community that is unleashed. And how do we manage the demand for more resources? We are working on that already as the executive. We are working on key elements of the strategy that we can start with in this difficult time financially, but that can transition us into Vision 2030. But at the moment, we want to focus on getting the vision approved. But I want to assure you that we are thinking about how do we transition to Vision 2030 that takes us into the future during this time of financial constraint. We are engaging at executive level as well as extended executive and leadership lekgotla to ensure that we don't have a vision document that then doesn't have anything to do or doesn't change anything that we do. I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions so that we can respond to them. But perhaps before I do that, I should ask the COO, Reno, I'm sure colleagues are there and saying, does this talk to us? Just in case there are colleagues who missed out that, in fact, goal number 3 and 4 talk to our operations. I want you to foreground that a little bit more, Reno.
Thanks, Mamokgethi. I mean, this is indeed an exciting opportunity, and our vision encourages innovation and creativity. And already we started asking ourselves, how can we use the digital platform to improve the way we work, to make us more efficient, to make us more exciting? And what COVID has done is really just catapulted us into the future, where already we are beginning to use digital platforms. I mean, a simple example is in our work from home policy, how prior to COVID, we were agonizing, we developed a pilot, and then COVID came along and we took charge of it. And certainly colleagues are working from home now already. We understand both the opportunities and the challenges of working from home, and it's our commitment to make that part of our new way of doing things. Using a digital platform to improve new models of service delivery. If we think of how our human resources and financial services can support the research and teaching and learning enterprise to make it more efficient. And colleagues already in the room and in other engagements have been excited about putting forward new models and ways of doing things, new ways of transporting students and staff. All of that represents an exciting way of changing the culture of what we want to do and also the way we actually operate. Thanks, Mamokgethi.
I'm checking on the question line. And here's a question that we've received in the past few meetings that we've had to engage colleagues in the university on Vision 2030. And I would like Lis to respond to this, because I'm sure some people are sitting in the audience and thinking, how can departments align their yearly strategies to the Vision 2030? And here, Lis, I'm focusing on academic departments. So if I'm a head of the department, what do I do to make sure that I align what we're doing in the department with Vision 2030?
Thank you, Hetty. Look, the system of the cascades that Hetty has shown, and it is the methodology that we use to develop the strategy, has as one of its major advantages that it creates the space for the different units in the university to start responding to this. So in the same way that we talk about a holistic, future-oriented education, and we put on the table a massive transformative purpose for teaching and learning, the notion is what each department and in each faculty is going to do in order to translate the notion of unleashing the potential of our students to be resilient agents of change. What does that mean for a lawyer, for an engineer, for a social scientist, for a humanist? What are the things that need to change? What are the things that you are doing that you need to stop doing? And what are the things that you can invent that are going to bring us closer to achieving that goal? So every department will have the opportunity to think in creative and inventive ways, and to give expression in their own environment to what the strategy means to their own community. I hope that that's clear enough, Vice Chancellor.
Thanks, Liz. That's clear enough. Another question that we have received that I think it's important to focus on is one that says, and I'm going to ask Loretta to attend to this one because I'm sure many people may be sitting and wondering. And it says, great companies bring their staff with them on a journey. They feel part of the bigger picture. What ideas has management to address the issues around past that are often not seen as part of the academic enterprise? All staff's answer to a question, what do you do at UCT? This person says all staff members' answer to the question, what do you do at UCT, should be, I assist in helping students graduate from UCT. Going to ask Loretta to attend to that, and then I'll also ask Reno. Loretta?
So yes, I absolutely think that it's important that we ask this question because it actually speaks to the issue that we raised earlier when we spoke to our transformation and how we want to and that mass transformative purpose that was on one of the slides that speaks to voice and agency. And of course, this is something we have been working on is to bring people together in fora and give an opportunity to express themselves, to express their ideas, and to also provide ideas that we as a university can take forward. So that when we talk about voice and agency, I think this is a moment that we should all see as an opportunity to think about how do I contribute, not only in terms of creating a university that we can all be proud of, but also to create a university in which I feel that I'm included.
Thanks very much, Loretta. Reno?
Thanks, Mamokgethi. I mean, part of building a new dream and a vision is not only that at the end of it, you then say past staff and academic staff come together. Part of building the vision is to do it together. And one of the strong components of how we developed this Vision 2030 is that the task teams and the working groups integrated past and academic staff working together to put a new dream on the table. And if that is how we continue to do it, we will encourage departments, faculties to do the same. An expression also of how we want to signal to everyone to work together and make sure that we equally assert and make sure that people feel part of the university is the Transformation Awards that we started last year. And this vision allows us to continue on that vein, that people working in teams and across the university will feel that they're part of the same dream. And I'm sure Sue will speak to a recent call that went out to also encourage academic and past staff to work together to realize a joint dream for us all. Thanks, Mamokgethi.
Over to you, Sue.
Thanks, Katie. So you will have seen our call around the UCT Campus Sustainability Project, and this is a call for around a 5-year project, which sets out to work out how we can improve the social, financial, and environmental sustainability of the UCT campus through doing things differently. What's really important is that this is not just a call for researchers. This is a call for the UCT campus, and we want to involve all members of campus in this to put forward their ideas and their proposals for doing something differently, some aspects of how we run our campus differently, working in teams which bring together members of the past staff, members of the research staff, teaching academic staff, students, postdocs, all of us who are on campus in different ways to be able to think about how we can run the UCT campus, how we can make the UCT campus into a more sustainable campus. It's a new way of doing things to work together in that way and not just to focus on either research or teaching, but to try and integrate it all. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Sue. I want to ask the question to Liz. It comes from Dick Ngambi, and it says, what are the measurable milestones and timelines for this vision? How will this vision be cascaded into action steps at faculty and departmental level? Less similar to the first, but it also includes the work that IPD will help us with in terms of measurable milestones.
Thank you, Katie. What we are going to say to do, Prof. Gambi, is that once we have the strategy approved, we will have to develop implementation plans for the different sections of the strategy. And based on the prior experience, what we have done is to be very careful as to not to have too many goals and KPIs in order to be able that we can measure them and that we can identify them quite clearly. So if I may just give you an example in the area of teaching and learning, we will have to do in terms of measurement of how are we advancing in stabilizing the blended provision of courses. What is happening in terms of the success of our students? What are the records in terms of curriculum change that are taking place, etc. And all of that will have to be cascaded and taken on by the individual departments with much more detail or much more specifics in a sense. So we are quite happy with the notion that we are going to be able to produce in all terms a tolerably simple enough dashboard that is going to keep the executive on its toes and the university informed in terms of what is happening.
Thank you, Liz. I see a comment about someone who says past staff members are not just admin. Exactly our point. I'm sure you'd recall my argument that all of us who are at UCT contribute to the academic project. Not only that, we benefit from it, whether we are students, past staff, or academics. And we wouldn't be the university that we are in all of our achievements if past staff were not there and if students were not there. This is not just a university of academics, it's a university of all of us. And so we want everyone to come on board. The sustainable campus core that came out, you will see that it comes from the VC's office and it will be funded through the VC's strategic funds. The idea is to start a culture of having projects that bring everyone in the community into one space. We want to challenge ourselves to think in that way, that we cannot have change in the university if we continue to work in silos. So this is the first project that we're doing in this way, and we want to see the diversity and the different strengths that come from our university coming together in projects that will be, proposals that will be granted funds. I want to ask the next question to Loretta, and it's about transformation. And it says, how innovative can one be in transforming the way things are done at UCT, and how can this be communicated to contribute to the overall Vision 2030 document? This is from Anonymous, and that's why I'm not mentioning the name. Loretta?
That will allow us to get our profile, our employment equity profile, at the push of a button. That's an idea that came from a colleague in ICTS who said, we always struggle with getting our profiles when we have recruitment processes. I'm sure there's a way in which we can actually streamline this, make it much more efficient, we can digitize it. And so from that idea came a project where we are sort of now trying to roll that out. So similarly, with the sustainability call that came from the VC's office, and it is about using these opportunities, or sometimes just grabbing an idea and saying to somebody, "What about this?" And as we are implementing the cascade in your different faculties and in your different departments, those are the moments that you need to grab, where you say, well, you know what, I've been thinking of this for so long. How about we try it? And that's what it means for a university to be unleashed, to think about our ideas, to voice it, to put it on the table. Not every single idea will be an idea that we will go with, but sometimes that's the idea that can make a difference. So this is really an invitation to come up with your ideas and share it. Share it with your colleagues, share it with us.
Thanks, Loretta. Loretta talks about an invitation. We do have Futures Catalysts who you can contact. You can write to DVC Lange, and we can get people who can help you think in the department if you want to engage with the future and you have ideas and you want people to work with. We've got people who can assist in that regard. I want to ask Lis the next question, and it says, what are your views on universities being overtaken by online teaching in the future? Of course, I always say the future is splendid, but Lis, can you elaborate on that and any other thing that you want to add from what we have spoken about already?
Thank you, Hetty. Look, universities will be overtaken and obsolete unless they embrace online teaching and forms of digital education as part of what they have to do. And UCT needs to pay careful attention to this. I do not believe that online education per se will mean that universities have been superseded, because the function of universities, certainly of universities of the kind of UCT, is not simply to be factories of learning, but to do other things. So the point is that unless universities like UCT adapt to the new demands and to the new methodologies for delivery, then we are going to face a serious problem. I think it is absolutely clear that UCT cannot go back to face-to-face education in a traditional way, as we were doing predominantly before the COVID epidemic. I think that the future has to be a blended future. And at the same time, we realize that what UCT offers in terms of the social experience of the university, in terms of the very notion of community of scholars and students, is absolutely necessary in terms of the very demands that the world is putting in the new generation of workers, with inverted commas, if you want to. So I think that we need to shape the future as the Vice Chancellor has challenged us. So we need to lead in terms of what it is to be a university in the 21st century, and we are going to have life for a very, very long time. So thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Thank you, Lis. I see questions that came in, and I want to ask the next one to Professor Sue Harrison, and it comes from Leslie Green. So, and it says, wonderful to hear such innovative approaches being put on the table. My question is this: much of the time, innovation comes from research funding to UCT's informal economy. That is, its research centers and institutes. Yet there is almost no integration of UCT's informal economy that leads innovation with UCT's formal economy, that is departments, teaching, and the GOB. What paths are you envisaging to integrate the two UCT economies so that innovation from the informal sector can be mainstreamed? Perhaps as Sue is going to answer, I'm going to say to you, Leslie, one of the things that we haven't talked about openly as the executive is that for the first time, the different portfolios are working very closely. So the DVC teaching and learning and the DVC research have regular interactions to make sure that we bring, and it's part of the agenda to bring what you call the two economies together. And it's great. It comes with its own challenges that we are embracing. But I'm sure Sue can talk about this from her perspective.
Thanks, Hetty. So I think it's interesting to note that what Leslie calls UCT's informal research economy has been a really key thing for UCT, because it's helped us to quite quickly be able to move to areas of real importance to our society and where we are, and to be able to mobilize those areas very quickly. Of course, if they don't remain really important, they also fall away more quickly. So that's been a really, and UCT really has developed its informal research economy into quite a big business. It's quite a major part of what we do. So then there's UCT's formal economy, which involves the departments and the GOB staff who are, of the academic staff, they're teaching and research staff. But they have a lot of teaching to do, so often they have less time for research. So in some places, those do work quite nicely together, and in other places, they're very separated. So I think you've heard in how I've spoken about things and how Gitti's spoken about things, that integration across, be it departments, be it can I put it as groups of staff, you know, whether it's an admin staff person or a tech sci, a technical and scientific person, or a soft-funded researcher or a GOB academic, all of those we're looking at to how to integrate across. I mean, I have seen spaces where really what gets done in the informal research sector can inform teaching and experiences for our students in amazing ways. And our real challenge is going to be to be able to make sure that these sectors can work together because they benefit each other, and to identify those shared benefits so that it drives a very natural working together. And I think that is not going to be that difficult to do if we just pull it out very explicitly. So I think it's very exciting, and I look forward to doing it. I think it will also work from what we are doing more and more now, is acknowledging the importance of our informal research sector, and that will allow us to embed it a bit more within the formal sector, but while not losing its ability to be agile, which I think is really important. And in the coming years, agility in research is going to be quite key to making sure that we can really make a difference as a university. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sue. I want to get to the next question, and this is for Liz. I missed who it came from. I think it's anonymous, different anonymous. How is the university space affected by the fourth industrial revolution? How are we changing our strategy and way of educating students to align with the innovation and change that comes with this revolution? And let me just say, I mean, I'm sure you heard Liz's point about the future being blended. There's also other challenges to the way we operate on campus. I mean, one challenge, and I'll put it out there, Reno and my colleagues have had this on the first day the president announced, or the first day we decided to evacuate students from residences. I said to colleagues that, you know, this crisis that we are in presents us with an opportunity as much as a challenge. And the opportunity is that there are things that come with the AI that we can trial on campus simply because there aren't many people on campus. So the lockdown, the fewer number of people on campus, create an opportunity for us to see how can we grab the opportunities that come with the fourth industrial, with technological advancements. The COO promised me that they're working on it with PNS. And so we're thinking about the benefits, the opportunities that the 4IR presents, whether in our operations and in our teaching and learning. But of course, it's not only in terms of what we do, it's also in terms of the world, how our students are prepared for that world that is rapidly changing. Les, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hetty. Look, I mean, I think that, like in everything, and this has been the approach that we have taken, is that everything that comes as something important, as a matter of debate globally, we need to take it, we need to embrace it, but we need to filter it in terms of our own realities. So one of the very good things that came out of the future think tank is to deal with the notion of the fourth industrial revolution and in a sense repurpose it for the reality of our country. So that's the first element that I would like to flag. The second element that I would like to flag is the type of technological elements that we need to bring in terms of our strategy. As I mentioned already, we are considerably behind in terms of the horizon of adoption of technology at UCT, certainly in the area of teaching and learning. So we are just moving into mobile learning. We are working with some analytical technologies and trying to set up for the first time at an institutional level learning analytics. We still have a lot to do in terms of adopting things like mixed reality, artificial intelligence, not to mention the notion of blockchain and virtual assistants and all these other things that other universities are doing. Now, when we do all these things, we need to, or when we think about all these things, we need to take into account the reality in which we operate, the students that we have, the issues that need to be present for us to be able to do all these things, and how much experimentation we can do in order to work in all these areas and bring our students and our staff with us. So I think that what the new strategy does is to take the fourth industrial revolution as one element of the change that we need to make and of the things that we can do, and we are very happy about that. But certainly it's not the only element, and I think that that's important. It's fourth industrial revolution through the lens of the needs and the demands of this country. Thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Thanks very much, Liz. Talking about how behind we are, those of us who come from other universities know that some South African universities went paperless as early as 2013. Some of us don't use paper at all. We go with a phone or with a device, and we are very paper-based. So before we even go to the advanced Bitcoin or AI, we have to get the basics right, which will also contribute to our sustainability and many other profitable ways of living. I want to ask the next question to Reno, and it says, perhaps this is not a constructive comment, the person says, but I will put it out anyway. You may ignore it, he says to me. Well, I'm not ignoring it. And they continue to say, I have read the document carefully and agree with its general goals and vision, but I'm missing something very important. What can be said about the kind of people who will be responsible for this? What are the basic values on a personal and social level that will inform the practices, visions, and goals pursued? I want to place focus on the human values, attitudes, etc. I feel that the document orients us to a new vision, but does not reflect too much on what kind of values, personal, communal, that will sustain these over time. I'm asking for the philosophical, cultural, and dare I say, religious resources. Is a liberal university such as UCT able to ask such questions at all? Does this sound like I'm asking something that may have to remain open-ended and pluralistic in a liberal context? Does it then mean that we remain at the level of process, operations, and objectively measurable goals? Has this not been the missing feature of our post-apartheid project that seems to have been grounded? Reno.
Thanks, Vice Chancellor. It sounds like a question that all of those on the panel will have to contribute to. I think a vision without addressing the issue of values is a vision that will not be realized. If we are going to stick at the level of process, measurable objectives and models, I think we would have failed not only the university community, but we would have failed the community that we believe we should be serving, the unleashing of our human potential. And there's no doubt that in realizing the vision, we at the personal level need to carry particular kinds of values, and we need to have the personal values consistent and aligned with the university values. I think one of my own experience in change management processes is where there's a disjuncture and divide between personal values and organizational values, you inevitably have an organization that does not realize its dream. It is therefore our joint responsibility, and I think Loretta will also talk in the transformation portfolio about how we are trying in our inclusivity surveys, in our RTC work, in what emerged from the Mayosi panel, that fundamental to changing UCT is a question of alignment between institutional values and personal values. And we hope through this dream that those two will be so aligned that it will result in conversations that are difficult but are important, that will result in new ways of doing things. And my view, Vice Chancellor, is if we don't have that conversation, and I think this is a fantastic question to have raised, if we don't have that conversation earnestly and openly and in a real way and move us forward, we will not realize a new UCT, both in the short term and in the long term. Thanks, Mamokgethi.
Thanks, Reno. Now you understand why I ignored the questioner and asked the question anyway. Let's OT.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor. Whoever asked this question, thank you very, very much. I think it is a very important question to ask. And this is something that we have been discussing as executive. The decisions that accompany strategy are, in a sense, political decisions, not in the sense of political party decisions, but deep philosophical choices about what it is that one wants a university to do. And I think that if you think in terms of the massive transformative process, when we said that we want to unleash human potential, maybe the unleashing human potential can happen in a sort of traditional liberal university environment. But the second part of this, which is in order to create a socially just society, is not a liberal, is not a mission of a liberal university. This is a university that makes a choice. And in making that choice, we cannot just not be grounded. We need to be grounded in terms of the things that we do and the things that we do not do, in the things that are acceptable and the things that are not acceptable. And that might disturb and at times create conflict, no doubt. But as the Vice Chancellor says, I mean, we need to allow ourselves to be disrupted, because otherwise we are not going to be effective. So we can keep the energy on our capacity to unleash from a liberal framework, but certainly this is a very oriented, very pointed purpose for a university. So in that sense, UCT will have to change. Thank you, Vice Chancellor.
Thanks very much, Liz. Before I hand over to Loretta with another question, but also asking her to respond to that, I just want to say that, you know, this is a journey that's not only going to take personal conversations, but it's also going to take recognition of what our past, our colonial and apartheid past has produced in individuals, what the damage of apartheid on individuals creates or produces in human behavior, whether it's anger, whether it's whatever. We're going to have to understand that, particularly at a time in our country when there's a lot of dissatisfaction about the progress that the country has made. So we're going to have these conversations as we understand. Dealing with poverty is one, but when our students come onto campus and they see the inequalities and what that evokes and what comes from the past. So we're going to have to manage this as we go along, but there's no way we can go on, as Liz said, with this vision without considering the issues that you raised. Loretta is going to contribute to that question, but I also want to add this kind of divine-ish question from Divine Fu. That says, given this pandemic and everything else that precedes and came with it, how do we make sure that care and social reproduction are at the center of our work and our contribution? Loretta.
Thank you, Katie. So, yes, I mean, the question is, the first question starts out by talking about values and the notion that there's a set of values that underlies this vision. And that's very clear. And I think we're very clear about the values that we want to take forward with us. I mean, we talk about a fundamental value such as social justice. And so I think the fact that we have various groups of people across the campus that contributed to this strategy that is built around this notion of we want to unleash human potential for a fair and just society. For a fair and just society, those are already values that we're very clearly articulating. And it's not values that comes from those of us in the exec. It's values that comes from all the people that participated in these workshops that ultimately came up with this. So for me, what I'm trying to say is I think these values are already inherent in many people that are part of VCT, which is why the vision looks the way it does. And so, and I think ultimately, you know, as Hetty has indicated, how we take this forward may not always land in a way in which everybody agrees, but that's part of what a university is about. It's about agreeing and disagreeing. And I think when people feel really strongly about the fact that they don't want to align themselves with this kinds of values that underlies the vision, you know, they may say, okay, well, then I will find another place where I can align myself. You know, unfortunately, that's the reality. I mean, there are certain organizations that I know that I would never want to work with because my value system and their value system are fundamentally at odds. But I'm hoping that as a university, even though that your personal values may be at odds with what the university is driving, that you can find yourself in a situation where you say, this may not be what I believe, but I'm able to contribute to what UCT stands for as an institution. I think that would be a win-win situation for us, and it speaks to the kind of change management processes that Rena is talking about. In terms of Divine's question, I think, you know, the pandemic has really shown how we can actually become a much more caring university. I think it is in a way forced us to show or to articulate better how we care. How as academics we care for our students, how as fellow staff members we care for each other. I've certainly seen it in the student space, in the way in which students have made themselves available, for example, to support other students. So I think that's already there. I think the pandemic has actually allowed us to build on it or to articulate it much better. And so we have the building blocks in a way for Vision 2030.
Thank you very much, Loretta. Reno, I want to ask you this question. The VULA data zero rating has made a huge difference to students' access to learning. And the colleague says, to my mind, it plays an important role in transformation. Is there any way of continuing the zero rating beyond 2020?
Mamokgethi, to extend Liz's metaphor, this is part of what I would consider a political project. So yes, the process says we go via the University South Africa Forum. Yes, we go via the Vice Chancellors to make sure that our partners, the telcos, are working with us and we ensure zero rating. It is actually something that we as a university together with other partners need to ensure that affordability and accessibility to higher education in this format continues in the way that we were pushed through the COVID environment. So yes, it is about values, and I think it's part of the political project that Liz spoke about. And we will continue to work administratively and obviously organizationally with the various structures with the Department of Higher Education, Science and Technology. But ultimately, I think we as a university with our partners must make sure that issues of affordability and accessibility continue well beyond 2021, Mamokgethi.
Thanks very much, Reno. The other question says, for you again, Reno, in terms of our admin processes and systems, UCT is quite far behind technologically in relation to other universities in South Africa and Africa. How will the vision allow for our administration to receive enough attention to move us into the future? I want to ask you to respond to this, but I also want the registrar to come online because we are already making progress in terms of using technology, whether in registration or in our operations. So I'm going to start with you, Reno, and then I'll go to Royston.
Mamokgethi, I want to pick up on a previous point about the limits of innovation. There are no limits. We don't want to limit innovation, and in particular, limit innovation in systems change and system improvement. So as you quite correctly said, there are a number of projects that are currently on the go that look at the ways we change our administrative systems. And I'll hand over to Royston in a minute. The student administration system is just one of those. Financial administration, human resource administration, what's happening in property and services in terms of our real estate management systems. So we want to encourage staff, all staff, academic and past staff, to take up the challenge of finding innovative ways of doing things, and we will be supporting those system innovations from the center as well as in the faculties. Thanks, Vicky.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very good question, and it's a very appropriate question. So the systems at the university have to be in a constant state of review and improvement. We have fallen behind in a number of respects. That particular issue has been on the agenda for a while now. We started a process in January this year with student registrations to review the processes that we run. And we've looked at the number of student admin systems domains that we need to prioritize, because that's where we have the biggest risk. And the idea is to have more efficient and integrated systems where the end state solutions for some of the challenges and the problems that have been identified will build on the key principles of efficiency, integration, and very importantly, they have to be student-centric to a much greater extent than has been the case up until now. And of course, it must be less onerous for staff to manage and run those systems. And importantly, this will also is intended to reduce the risk of a compromise of personal and private information, which we, of course, as a university are going to have give very serious attention to in regard to the fact that the POPI legislation is with us. So a lot of work has been done over the last 7 months with respect to the student admin system and a number of important domains within that. And as Reno has mentioned, in relation to that, we need to also bear in mind that we have multiple other systems around finance, around HR, and around research management, for example. But the priority has certainly been, for the first 7 months of this year, the student admin systems, and good progress has been made in that regard, and we continue to work on that.
Thank you very much, Royston. My colleagues are asking why my background has changed. So someone has just given us feedback in the chat room, which in the question and answer line, which is very interesting, about the map of Africa falling on the stairs and the symbolic meaning of that. And I felt the peer pressure, and I thought, well, maybe I can show my background and say we continue to think, and we appreciate your feedback. I want to take the next question, and the next question is for Lis. But I'm going to ask Reno to respond to this one as well, because there are concerns with going online. So the question says, with respect to continued online teaching, what will happen to departments whose main function are dependent on students being on campus? That is issues of redundancy. And perhaps to say to the colleague that we don't envisage UCT becoming an open distance learning institution. That's not our future. We are a different kind of a university. We're not hoping to occupy the same space with UNISA, but we see a future that is blended, where we will use both online and face-to-face. And of course, there are programs, as you know, we'll be bringing the students who are doing on whose programs need face-to-face teaching, we're bringing them back on campus. But we envisage a future that is blended, not only in teaching and learning, but also in research. So as we sit now, Professor Sue Harrison has got a challenge on her table to think about how do we enable students' international experience, drawing on the experiences that we have with virtual teaching and learning. How do we do that for postgraduate students? How do we do that for international experience of our students, both undergrad and postgrad? And that's thinking about a future that's blended, that goes to teaching and learning, that goes to research, that also goes to student experience. Can we think creatively about that, having had this experience of COVID-19? Going to hand over to Lis to respond to this question, but also to Reno, given the concerns of some staff who think that, well, because we're going online, we are going to lay off staff automatically come 2021. Alice?
Thank you, Hetty. I want to take the long view of this question. So this is not about whether the university continues doing online work for the first quarter of next year, for example. I'm taking the question in terms of what Hetty has enunciated already. So first point is that there is no intention of taking UCT into an online future as if we were offering a UNISA type system. UCT has different things to offer and we want to keep, that's the first point. The second point is that when we talk about blended learning in the context of undergraduate education at UCT, we are making it dependent on our students, a large number of our students being present on campus. What we are saying is that we can provide online lectures for students, but that we will provide other experiences that are face-to-face experience. Until the country has sufficient socioeconomic development to guarantee that data is cheaper, that towers are all over the place in order for students to be able to connect, the guarantee of the social justice aspect of our education is that we have the students present on campus in such a way that they can use UCT's infrastructure for blended learning. So we will take in these things on stages. Second point in relation to the general question about online is that we are thinking of a differentiated approach. So one thing is undergraduate degrees that we are saying would be blended, but the different thing is when we talk about some postgraduate degrees and some specific types of education. So a thing that we have not done so far is micro-credentials. Well, UCT has an enormous potential to do interesting, good and profitable things in the micro-credentials environment that can cross-subsidize other issues. So I think that the future is far more complex and far more nuanced than just going online, and we are taking care and being very mindful about the impact that this has for students and for staff. Thank you, Hetty.
Thanks very much, Liz. Reno?
Thanks, Mamokgethi. I think it's building on Liz's point that we in this as a university for the long haul, if I want to put it that way, but also with immediate, short and medium-term goals. It is our commitment as an executive, and I think all of us in this room and beyond, that we need to balance our social sustainability, our financial sustainability, and our environmental sustainability. And certainly in catapulting us and realizing a fair and just society, we're going to have to address all those issues of inequality that are not necessarily within our control. But as a university, we need to speak up and we need to address issues of access and affordability that I spoke about. So I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we balance it, that this university has a future and that we take the best possible decisions to ensure that our dream is realized. And so I want to build on what Liz is saying. This is a project, it is a journey for us, and we will walk that journey with our colleagues in the room and our past staff and academic staff, as well as all our students. Thanks, Mamokgethi.
Thanks very much, Reno. We have 14 minutes left, and so I want us to respond to some of the questions that have been asked. I'm going to go to Professor Harrison. How will Vision 2030 change the mindset of the researcher? The person says we need researchers to talk to other researchers on campus and have them share similar 4IR resources. Sue?
Thanks, Hetty. So I think this is really interesting. In some ways, researchers have indicated that they like the comfort zone of their space of operation. But so often we see that what they do can be strengthened so much by conversations with other researchers. For me, as a bit of an anecdotal thing, it came out so clearly as we started Future Water as an interdisciplinary institute some years ago, that the way we dealt with problems, what we would have considered technical problems, completely changed when we managed to put the human element into it by looking at behavioral responses, etc. So it's absolutely critical that we do this. In our research symposium last year, when we asked a number of very open-ended questions, this was probably the biggest take-home message, that researchers at UCT want to be able to talk to other researchers at UCT. They want to have ways of finding people who have very different expertise, but similar problem interests, or want to grow understanding in similar areas. And so that's one of the things that we will have to think about how to deliver into the space. So part of it can be done through our, e-research and electronic systems and how we use 4IR. And part of it is about being able to afford those informal conversations, those informal meetings of people who wouldn't normally cross paths. And that is one thing that we will need to think through around the fabric of our campus. As I say, it really has come up as such a strong thing. It's a space where we are working on ideas, and it doesn't stop just with UCT. One of the really interesting things that we've been observing as we've watched how researchers are interacting with their colleagues in collaborative projects that involve more than one university, in how they share their knowledge. We're not able to travel at the moment, and people have such innovative ideas at the moment as to how they run their research collaboration meetings with people from all around the world. And this is opening up completely different ways of working and completely different ways of connecting with each other. Katie mentioned just now the work that needs to happen around internationalization. It's not just our own people on our own campus who we can talk to, but we can think about how we create environments in which our students can meet people from different spaces, different cultures, different environments to address similar problems. And we need to be able to be providing those environments within our classrooms, within our research facilities, and with how we run our campus, both in the electronic space or in the online space, but also in the occasional meeting space. Thanks for the question. It's something we will certainly think through.
Thank you very much, Sue. I want to ask the following question to Reno. How will the vision ensure that administrative staff feel valued, recognized, and that our concerns and ideas are heard? Often we feel overlooked in relation to students and academics. Reno is going to answer that, but whilst Reno is coming to that, part of what we've been trying to change as the exec is to start talking about UCT staff. And when we had our staff assembly, our virtual staff assembly that we had when the lockdown started, some colleagues were saying, well, let's have a separate one for past staff, for academics, and I said to them, no, but it's for UCT staff. And we, as the leadership, work with the idea that we have UCT staff. And I think it starts with that attitude. The other thing that Reno mentioned was the awards. I mean, what we've done with the awards since the end of 2018 is to bring all the staff members under one roof to recognize excellence from across the university. We realized the first year that it was for past staff, it was about service, loyalty. For others, it was about performance. In 2019, we moved to say past staff also offer more than loyalty. They offer service, they offer excellence, they make us who we are. And so we introduced other categories. And we keep moving. Of course, things move slowly in this gigantic institution, but the Vision 2030 is going to push us to move even further. And the call for a sustainable campus is one of those, but there will be other initiatives that we are working on in terms of transitioning into 2030, that even if it emerges from an academic portfolio, we want to see how it can have a ripple effect and work across different portfolios or different entities in the university. Reno.
Thanks, Mamokgethi. I mean, you've covered those things that we have already started doing, and I think this vision, and I do want to put this out as an invitation to academic and past staff to say that it's in our authority, it's in our doing, it's in our way of being that we can deal with this issue of the divide, past academic and the other divides that we're speaking about. So the way we've done it, and we've started with the development of the vision, as I've mentioned, is past and academic staff working together. What I'm appealing and asking us to do this together is when we cascade the work down to faculty level and departmental and unit level, that the same spirit that you've spoken about, that we ensure that that flows through the way we work, the way we realize the vision, and that we put very deliberate mechanisms in place, but we own it as staff, as colleagues together, and try and change the university, shift this tanker into a speedboat in the transformation process. And so I know we are doing a lot to try and change this divide. Our commitment is that we do it together more and more and more, with a trajectory that's faster and faster. Thanks, Mamokgethi.
Thanks very much, Reno. The question that I'll pose to Loretta is similar, but I want Loretta to take it from the side of transformation. And it says, you all refer to bringing all UCT communities together to have a shared sense of belonging. How do you intend to go about this important and meaningful task and not just pay lip service to it? Using the division that exists between academic and past staff as an example, in instances where past staff roles straddle both camps and they are utilized to teach students yet are categorized as UCT guests on the system. How are relevant contributions such as these acknowledged? This is an important question, but let me talk to lip service. You know, before things come into being, they have to be spoken. We give it, we word it, we language it, and it travels once you language your vision. So we've got to language it, it travels, more people own it, because it's not this. It's not something that's going to be changed only by executive management. It's something that's going to change across departments from lower levels, high up levels, right? But I also hear, and colleagues here from ICTS are with us, the guest identification is when we get onto teams, I think. I'm sure we need to look at that. So as Reno made the invitation, I'm going to ask that we take up that invitation so that we can think outside the box and think about how do we bring the two together. Loretta.
Thanks, Katie. I think Reno has answered the question very well. I mean, and spoke to it very much from a transformative lens. I actually want to go beyond Reno's invitation for colleagues to feel that this is a shared problem that we address in a shared manner by putting it out as a challenge. I think it's often the way in which we see ourselves as past staff. And I think sometimes we create our own limitations. It was very interesting for me last year when we compiled the 2019 transformation report. And we were talking about, you know, we're now starting to measure how we are doing as faculties, as departments in terms of furthering the transformation goals. And the question around, so how do I, as a past department, further the transformation goals with respect to students? Some of the past departments felt like they didn't play a role. And I was thinking, but, you know, without you, we won't have a university. So I often think that past staff themselves must see themselves differently, because we must all take up the challenge. And I think the thing about transformation is that it puts us into a reflective mode. We need to think about our actions towards each other, but we also need to think about our actions towards ourselves. And with voice and agency, that's really an invitation, but also a challenge to bring your voice and agency into this space. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of questions around how will UCT, but who's UCT? I mean, we all UCT. UCT is a campus out on the mountain, but it's also us. And so for me, I think part of inclusivity is actually using language that includes us and doesn't distance us from the problem or the solution.
Thank you very much, Loretta. We are UCT. Excellent point. There's 3 minutes to go. I want to read the 2 questions. One, I will phrase it to Loretta. The next one, I'm going to ask Les to take it. So the first one, Loretta, to you is, there is no doubt about the vision being progressive and its potential to move us forward. It aims to unleash human potential in and for Africa in a digital age. If we are to learn from Kodak, how do you see UCT exploiting its position to redress the inequality and build social justice on the continent? Just a word on Kodak. Kodak thought they would survive the digital transformation. They didn't even engage. They went on going on with what they were doing. Why? Because they were the top company. They were doing very well. And what makes us already different from Kodak as the leadership of UCT is that we are saying we cannot relax in our success. We've got to do something else to embrace, to catch the moment. I'm going to ask the question to Lis and then hand over to Loretta to speak, and then Lis to speak, and then I'll close. Lis, your question is from Liani Master. Liani has asked several questions. Liani, thank you so much for engaging with the very good questions that you've asked in this session. I haven't mentioned your name, but I thought it's important to do that. It says, further to Prof. Lange's statement on micro-credentials, is there any institutional support for designing short courses that are not credit-bearing? I think currently SILT only produces credit-bearing courses, but it's quite daunting to take on designing and putting a course online without support. Short courses can generate income for UCT, but also empower learners who don't have the luxury to register for a degree program or don't have matric exemption. Les?
Thank you, Hetty. The short answer is yes. We are working on a full framework to establish how are we going to do this and what is the range that we are going to be offering. And most certainly, we are very interested in the different niches that we can serve, and also on what it is that UCT can get for itself through this process. So watch the space. One of the ideas is to create a series of partnerships to offer micro credentials, which are not necessarily credit bearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Les. It's 2 o'clock, and I just want to say thank you for joining us in this session, for engaging, for your questions, and the comments that we have seen coming through. We really appreciate this. This takes us forward in terms of our vision. But here's the thing, as Loretta said, we are UCT. This vision will only come into fruition if you do things that are of benefit for your university, for you. And so it's going to take all of us to make this vision come to fruition. I always say we are successful because of the people in the university. It's not because of the buildings. It's not because we are next to the mountain or in Cape Town. It's because of the quality of people that we have in the university. Our future will only be as successful because of the people that we have in the university and those that we will recruit as we go along. So thank you very much for joining us, and please continue to engage. Send us ideas if you have. Vision 2030@uct.ac.za, and we will engage and take your suggestions seriously.